Hello, and welcome to the Poisonpaintfactory. My factory designated name is Poison226. Nice to meet you.
I know. Yes, right in front of me. I'm sure I will get him this time. Trust me. I have just the tools. I swear this ends today. I will get you, Frank. Any paints necessary. Even if I have to go to the hobby store and back to do so. Twice. And with that, I started at the beginning.
So, this is Punisher from the cool mini or not board game Marvel United. It's a nice little simple game. We tend to use it for parties. Probably can get it anywhere you look for a board game. And my goal with the Punisher is to paint him bright colours, but still keeping with the aesthetics of like the 80s comics, where it's lots of bright colours and that kind of thing. I started off with airbrushing him white, so I had a nice bright base to work from, and I went with abyssal blue because it's the darkest non-black colour I have, and I thought the black jumpsuit, in keeping with the 80s Punisher comics, has like a blue reflective light to it, so that's where I'm going with that. The black leather I'm using for the leather trench coat, I wanted to use something that was the opposite to the jumpsuit. So the jumpsuit's going to be more blues, and the leather trench coat is going to be more on the purpley side, so it kind of blends in with the blue, purple, red spectrum I'm going with here. I use watery colours to start with, just to kind of feel out where one item of clothing starts and ends, and it works really well for me. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it works well for what I do. And then I just go over and over it, maybe 2 or 3 thin coats, and then you get this kind of colour. I decided to go with red leather for the base. You'll see later how far I go with this, but again, it's keeping within those 3 colours. So the blue for the jumpsuit, the purpley red colour for the trench coat, and the red for the base, to kind of bring all these 3 colours together. It looks a little bit of a mess right now, but don't you worry, I'll clean all that up later. And then the next biggest section is going to be the missile launcher, which I'm going with Eclipse Grey because it's off black. And then I can use black to go back round and do all the recess washers and that kind of thing. And it will really pop, it will read as black compared to the other colours, but it isn't going to be a solid black. Shaping up quite nicely. And the last big area really is going to be his skin colour, his face. I wanted to use, there's a Punisher comic where his face is really, really light coloured, and I thought that would work really well to draw your eye up to his face, which is the focus point of most models. So I'm going to use bright but dark colours for everything else. His face is going to be really bright, and you're going to be drawn to that, between that and the skull logo on his chest anyway. With the hair being sculpted on, this kind of buzz cut on the sides, I thought it would be best to mix the flesh colour with like a brown grey colour, and it looks almost like it's very, very short. I was going to stipple and texture it, but I thought it looked good enough like this, so I didn't think I'd mess around and waste any more time than I thought necessary. And this is the darkest colour I'm going to use for his hair. Everything's going to be brightened up after that. It was a really interesting model to paint. It's very much like the Moon Knight that I also painted recently. Check out that video, that's really good for showing the different whites that you can come up with between the sandy kind of bone coloured white and also the blue grey spectrum white. But they're really cool, really interesting models to paint. Even though they're a board game model, because the proportions are like chibified, so that's big head, big hands, quite similar to Games Workshop minis, to be honest, with the big head, big hands, big guns kind of aesthetic. But this is kind of out of proportion. This is even bigger than them. It's a bigger model to start with. But they're a lot of fun. The details are all there and they're really easy to get a grip on. With his eyes, I really didn't want to paint white eyes. I thought it'd be really interesting to show his eyes in shadow, like they're really darkened down. And the reason for this was I was thinking of him like a predator, like a shark, where it's really dark and menacing and then just a pop of white which shows that kind of evil intent. I also think this model's based on the Punisher Warzone, which was Raystevenson. One, his face very much kind of looks like him, and two, in that film he uses a missile launcher, which is the only time I think I've ever seen the Punisher use a missile launcher to blow up some guys who were doing parkour on the top of some buildings. Fun movie, go watch that. So while I've been yammering on about all this stuff, I've been highlighting his face up. So this is going to be the brightest highlight, which I've used white, and it should in theory draw your eye to his face. I know it's overly bright, but because I knew I was going to darken the beard down, I thought that to go really bright with the skin would really make your eye drawn there. And with the beard, I thought I'd try and make it look a little bit like it's really patchy, really stubbly. So I've also done some highlights, which are horizontal highlights to show where the light will be hitting. It's all very, very sketched out. It's not taken a long time to do. And now I'm brightening up the jumpsuit with blues. Generally, when I'm doing highlights, I like to mix the last colour I used with the next colour that I'm going to use. So we started off with abyssal blue, and then we moved up to navy blue, and then that was a 50-50 mix. Then I did a full 100% navy blue highlight on top of that, and then as you can see, I'm going up. And I'm doing staggered stages to start picking out those muscles and really make them pop. The best thing with these kind of highlights to do is to go over the size that you would normally do for a highlight, and then make sure when you do the next highlight on top of that that you still have some of that previous highlight showing. It really does look shiny, and that's what I was trying to get at with that colour scheme, and it's really brightened up that black to keep it more interesting instead of it being just a big blob of black with a big white skull on it, which is totally fine. It would look perfectly serviceable, especially for a tabletop board game. But for me, I really wanted him to stand out because it's been really interesting researching about the Punisher. I really wanted to do him justice. If you are interested in the Punisher, go check out my video about the Punisher, which I did a couple of weeks ago. Really fascinating. Some really great stuff about the different people who portrayed him, his different comic book adaptations. We pretty much hit a bit of everything there. Go check it out, it's a lot of fun. With the skull logo on his chest, I wanted it to be really bright and shiny. So I did, again, like I did with the beard, horizontal stripes to brighten up one side so it looks like the light is coming from his left-hand side, or what we're looking at as the right-hand side. With the leather jacket, I want it to be really shiny and I really wanted to bring some colours in. So the first thing I did, after I'd picked out the actual leather jacket, I started to darken down the bits under his shoulder blades, where his waist would be, and the bits where the fabric split and you would have darker bits, lighter bits. So I've darkened down all of the recesses first, and then I used that as a template to go for the next bit, which is to brighten up. So as you can see, I've mixed the black leather and the sunset purple together, and I've watered it down so it's very thin. I've taken away a lot of the water by dabbing it on a paper towel or whatever you want, like a cloth, and then just gently rub it over where you want the highlights to be. So you can see there now, I've done a couple of highlights, but you can kind of see the process where on his shoulders especially, I've done quite broad purple highlights, and then I've gone back and I've done thicker, more opaque highlights, and now I've just picked all the corners with white. And it's best to use the darkened areas as a guide for that, because you have your darkest and lightest parts next to one another on models. Next, I've started to highlight his hair, so just very thin edge highlight. So get some paint on your brush and dab it on a cloth so that there's not much paint left on it, and then just rub it against those areas that you want the paint to be, because there's quite a lot of edges on his hair. If you can see, the sculpt is really nice for this, and just kind of run it over a few times until you start getting a highlight on it. It's really nice, really easy. Next, I've gone to the missile launcher, and I've just darkened down where all the different lines are. You can see there the ridges. I've just darkened all those down, and then again, like with the leather jacket, I've just gone and highlighted up all of the edges. There you see, it's really starting to pop. You can see all those different panels, and again, I'm brightening it up even further here on just where the light would shine, where it would hit. Okay, now we're going at the base, so again, darkening down everything. With this, I pretty much watered it down to like a wash consistency, so it's not quite coloured water, you can still see the colours in it. You just go over it and it will settle into all of the recesses there. And after that, I start brightening it up. So I leave all the recesses alone and I just go over and over where the flat panels are, so you can see where the rocks are. And I start to brighten that up stage by stage, leaving a little bit of the last colour showing each time. I'm brightened up to an orange, where I'm just hitting the corners of everything. So again, almost like a dry brush, you have the paint on your brush, you wipe away a lot of it, and then just rub your brush up against the corners. And it's as simple as that, and it looks super effective. After that, I started picking out all of the gunmetal shells. I wanted them to be a yellow because that would work really nicely with the red, and I can start highlighting it up with lots of, again, horizontal stripes, leaving a little bit of the last colour showing each time, and follow the curvature of the actual shell. So think of it more of like a very slight U shape, so it's got like a little bend to the metal. So just do that, it'll look really nice. I brightened up to white sands, so it's like off-white, and finish it all off with a nice RJ. Water down the black so it doesn't take away too much, and just keep going over it so that it's nice and smooth. And here he is in all his glory. I really liked painting this model. I didn't go too crazy with the whites because I didn't want them to draw your attention away from his face. But you can definitely tell that he's wearing the white gloves and the white boots that he had in the comics. I really like how bright and poppy all the different aspects are. You can tell each thing is a different type of fabric, a different type of leather. And he looks like he fits on that base without me kind of doing dust and stuff on the boots, because I want him to look like he's like fresh out on town going after the criminals. And there he is next to my inspiration. So I used the Punisher from like the 1980s comic with the nice blue shiny kind of jumpsuit with the white gloves and white shoes. I used the Soviet Punisher comic as inspiration for the face colour, the skin colour should I say, with a little bit of a beard going on. I just think he looks super menacing in that pose, that colour scheme. And again, it's brighter. It's brighter than I would normally go for like a skin colour, especially for something as chibi as this. And finally, the Punisher from the video game, I used the red colours for the base, and the way that I really wanted to give the Punisher some drama. I think it all really works well together. If I did him again, maybe I wouldn't have gone with purple for his jacket. Everything else I'm really happy with. I think the purple just kind of stands out and it takes a little bit away from the blue jumpsuit. I don't know, what do you think? Tell me in the comments.
Well, I might have captured his likeness, but I haven't captured Frank himself. We'll see, maybe next time. Watch this space.
And so, with all that said, thank you for your time. I wish you a good day, and many more besides. Yours, forever in horror, 226.